There's this mindset I adopted a couple months ago that 1. Stopped me from being a lazy freaking bum, 2. Made me more productive than I've ever been in my life, and 3. Actually helped me enjoy my work and not always find it boring. So, may I present to you the XP farming method. Imagine that you spawn in a game called Life. What exactly is the point of playing this game? Yeah, I don't know either. But basically, the goal of this game is very simple. Beat enemies, get XP, upgrade your character, and defeat the final boss at the end of the game. However, there's more to it than you might think. So let's start at the beginning. You spawn into the first of many worlds. These worlds will represent each set of goals that you want to accomplish right now or in your life. To pass on to the next world, you'll need to go through a portal at the end of the stage. The problem is there's a massive ass boss guarding each portal in every world. So to get through them, you'll probably need to upgrade your stats and get stronger. To do that, we're going to kill these stupid little enemies scattered across the map. Now, the map is split up into many little areas, which the enemies reside in. Each of these areas represent a day, and all the usual tasks you'd have to complete on that day. And each enemy represents, well, a task. For example, for today, I have to eat 3,000 calories to bulk, go hit leg day at the gym, and work 3 hours on a video. Defeating these enemies will drop a little bit of XP, which will go to one of your XP bars, depending on what type of enemy it was. The task that I the task that I had to do to beat this enemy was to hit leg day at the gym, so the XP would go to my strength bar. Now, your set of XP bars will look different depending on the goals you are trying to achieve. So if you're trying to get bigger muscles, read more books, and grow a YouTube channel, then your set of XP bars might look like this. But with a different set of goals, it might also look like this. So yeah. To pass the area, you must kill all the stupid little enemies in that area specifically, and you are unable to move on to the next one without doing so. Along with this, if you aren't able to kill all the enemies before the day ends, all the XP you gain from that day will disintegrate into thin air, making all your work basically for nothing. And also, when you're fighting these enemies, you'll also need to keep your stamina bar in mind. You see, every single time you fight an enemy, a little bit of your stamina bar goes down. Now, you might be thinking, oh, okay, well, this feature doesn't fucking matter because it's just stamina. I can use all of it and wait for it to recharge. No, because in this game, not only do you start dealing damage when you don't have enough stamina, but you deal damage when your stamina is low, not even when you run out of it, motherfudger. This feature of the game is called Burning Out, and will make completing tasks physically and mentally harder to do. Luckily, you can regenerate your stamina by doing things like eating properly and getting a good night's sleep. However, these methods will only regenerate a small portion of your stamina, so this is where resting zones come handy. So these zones can be found every now and then when you're moving between areas, making enemies unable to enter them. These resting zones represent you making memories or being at peace in life, whether that means you going out to a new restaurant, you hanging out with your friends, or even just taking a nice long walk in the quiet sunset. These are the things that will recharge you and give you motivation, energy, and stamina to fight more enemies. Now, before we talk about these ugly ass bosses blocking the fucking portal, I need to mention that these enemies actually evolve the further you go through areas. Cause at the start, you're fighting against these level 5 motherfuckers that aren't that hard to beat. But for example, as you get consistent with growing yourself and doing tasks like lifting at the gym, these tasks will get progressively harder to do. However, because you've already grown your stats over time, you'll most likely have enough strength to defeat them. This is just the game's way of making sure you learn the techniques of fighting the boss, because the more evolved an enemy is, the more it actually acts like the boss. In other words, you're not only getting the rewards and the outputs of your hard work, but you're also slowly learning and becoming that person that is able to manage those accomplishments. Because if you just started the game and you're only level 1, and you somehow find a glitch and tackle all the enemies at once, you're gonna get fucking violated. But okay, let's say you've been grinding for a long time now, and you finally reach the boss. The boss represents the same things as the world do, which are the certain goals and stats that you were trying to achieve in the first place. If you have the stats required to defeat the boss, then congrats, you're able to move on to the next world. However, if you're unable to beat it, you're always able to go back to a previous area and keep XP farming enemies until you have enough. However, make sure you don't get lost in XP farming enemies too much, because the thing is, once you defeat the boss, all your stats from this world don't pass on to the next. So if you maxed out your speed stat to level 9200 in the first world, you'll still have those stats, they just won't pass on to the next world. This is the game's way of making sure that you don't keep doing the same task over and over again to pretend to be productive. If you keep lifting the same weight day after day, even if it starts to feel easy to lift, then you aren't really making any progress to be stronger. But yeah, once you pass on to the next world, you can then fight more enemies, beat the boss there, and grow your stats.